Canadian Forces Station St Johns. For more than 3/4 of a century, we have played an important role both in terms of our contribution within the Canadian Armed Forces and as citizens of the city of St Johns. We are carrying on a military relationship that spans several centuries. Our role at Pleasantville and other points has not changed that much since the station was established in 1968.
The Canadian Forces Organization Order, that's the order that establishes CFS St Johns, establishes it as a support base or a support station. In total, we support somewhere in the vicinity of 15 lodger units. The 15 lodger units come from 5 different commands across the country. We have approximately 420 regular force personnel supported by CFS St Johns. 70 of those are at CFS Argentia, and the remainder are right here in this area.
And that includes assisting the 35 to 40 Navy ships that dock in St. John's Harbor each year, to technical support for the 350-odd military aircraft that touch down every year at Torbay Airport.
Our main role with respect to ships visits is support to the ship. The ship will, usually 5 days or 6 days before they arrive, they'll provide us with their requirements, and it's called a log rec, which is a logistics requisition. Everything's in short form in the military. And the logistics requisition just tells us exactly what they require. They require fuel, they require food, they require, well, groceries, they require a dumpster facility to get rid of their garbage. They may require water, they may require a whole number of things, and that log requisition will tell us what is required.
Canadian naval vessels out of Halifax that are assigned to fisheries patrol off the Grand Banks and on sovereignty patrols or NATO exercises in the Atlantic make regular calls to the Port of St. John's for fuel and supplies. Since the days of the Vikings, this has been a safe harbor for explorers, merchant vessels, and warships.
The services that St. John's provides, it's almost instantaneous. A good example would be yesterday. We've asked for some fresh fruit, and that went out yesterday afternoon about 1 o'clock. And by 3:30, 3:45, we got the answer back. Now I know on Friday afternoon, trying to track down people, trying to go to various companies, that's extremely fast. The services are unbelievable. Once we get alongside the IRORs, all our parts are there. You can't say enough about them. The communication between the ships and St. John's is very, very good.
Canadian Forces Station St. John's and most of its 15 lodger units are located in the east end of the city on a site called Pleasantville. There's a military legacy here that goes back to 1762. It is where Britain and France fought the last battle of the 7 Years' War. Many British officers stayed on and farmed here. The Royal Newfoundland Regiment trained here from 1914 to 1916 before breaking camp and embarking for the battlefields of Europe. The unit suffered 90% casualties. Alcock and Brown of the Royal Air Force assembled their Vickers Vimy here for their historic transatlantic flight in 1919. In 1940, with the world again at war, the United States chose Pleasantville as the site for a military base under the Destroyers for Bases deal that was hammered out by Churchill and Roosevelt. The first Americans arrived a year later to begin construction of Fort Pepperell. This aerial photo marks the determination of an American commander to leave his mark. The streets are laid out in the shape of a Stetson. At war's end, it became Pepperell Air Force Base and remained so until the Americans departed in May of 1960. They left an indelible mark. During their 20-year presence, American troops married more than 10,000 Newfoundland women. So today's military establishment is very much in keeping with tradition as we provide administrative and logistical support to lodger units as varied as 727 Communications Squadron and the Canadian Rangers. Our station supports 500 of the 900 Canadian Rangers in Newfoundland, a volunteer force of experienced fishermen, hunters, and woodsmen who are familiar with their local areas. They patrol sparsely populated coastal and isolated areas that cannot be guarded by regular forces. Headquarters Newfoundland District is made up of headquarters and 3 reserve units. the Royal Newfoundland Regiment, the Royal Canadian Engineers, and 36th Service Battalion. And we support HMCS Cabot. This is a Naval Reserve Division whose function is to supply trained personnel for the ships and bases of Maritime Command.
We have an excellent relationship with CFS St Johns. They are very supportive of us, whether it's rations, accommodations. We have a vessel, standoff, that we use quite a lot. They are very supportive in assisting us, have that vessel running 12 months of the year. We have major exercises that we do. We did one in last November, the Maritime Command Operational Training Exercise. We formed part of that, and the base was absolutely excellent in their support of accommodating our people, assisting us in getting things that we required, and at short notice in many cases. I think we are probably the only Naval Reserve Division that's actually located on the support base, and being on the base is a great benefit to us. We have, we depend on the base for the financial support, getting our claims through when we go away on Class B. Kids who are going away in the summer can easily go down and get their advances in pay, so they don't have to put their own money up front. Our clothing stores are located there. Within very short periods of time, we have whatever support we need from CFS St Johns.
And we are fully behind the cadet movement, the largest youth organization in Canada. Of the more than 5,000 boys and girls who belong to cadet organizations across the province, about 2,800 are supported by the station.
Right in Metro St Johns, we got 6 squadrons now instead of the 4 that originally started, and 6 of them are very active. 4 of them are directly supported here on CFS St Johns. Supported in the sense that the accommodation is provided by the station at no cost to the squadron, at no cost to the sponsors who back the squadron, and at no cost to the cadets. And it's this kind of support that really makes it worthwhile for the movement. If we look at what it would cost per cadet for similar accommodations to be available, I don't think we could flourish as we are in the city with air cadets. It's just a tremendous support, and it's been there from day one of this station.
In carrying out our military responsibilities, Canadian Forces Station St Johns has an enormous economic impact on the area. With more than 300 military personnel and close to 50 civilians, we generate over $20 million in military salaries, almost $2.5 million in civilian salaries, and an additional $3.5 million in operating costs. The total economic impact is in the area of $28 million.
A lot of people that come to St. John's, there's not a lot of PMQs in the area, so a lot of people opt to buy. And a lot of people are from Newfoundland, come back here, they purchase their own home to live on the economy here for 4 or 5 years, and of course they have to sell them again. But basically there's a lot of money coming in for people buying houses. $100,000 is nothing to buy a house around the area. So the number of personnel, i.e. 322 times their wives, all this money is just spent here in St. John's, or in the local area anyway.
So we are an important economic factor in the greater St. John's community.
When you realize that there are almost 400 people associated with the base here, that the economic impact, when you get in the vicinity of $20 to $30 million, for a community this size, the city of St. John's, it plays a role, plays a major role. It's an employer. 300, 400 people makes it a major employer.
Pye's Construction and Decorating Services is a family business that goes back 100 years. It is one of a number of local contractors used by the station.
Judging on a yearly basis, it represents about 25% of my revenue each year. But I remember coming down with Father on paydays and when he's paying the men here, and I've been associated with the base ever since. And Father came back, believe it or not, he came back as manager of Public Works, Federal Public Works here. When we went with Confederation, he joined the forces here and headed up Public Works. So then I've always been associated with Pleasantville, or Fort Pepper as we called it in those days.
Brookfield Dairies is another of our regular suppliers.
We look after people like the Canadian Armed Forces, for which in turn helps us develop our business throughout Newfoundland and Labrador. With the economic conditions and everything that we have out there today, with the fish moratorium and the problems general in business. It's nice to have something like the Canadian Armed Forces out there to help us grow.
So that is the economics of our relationship with the people and businesses of St. John's. But that relationship is built on much more than dollars and cents.
One of the things that ties very nicely into this province, and particularly this city, is the historical and cultural significance of the military on Newfoundland, and particularly on St. John's. It's part of what you normally will see in this community. St. John's is a community-based urban center, and the military and the sea and the military base itself historically have really what helped mold St. John's as you see it today. Is a very integral part. I think that you can't separate that component, the military component, from the cultural component of the city.
Our station's a little bit different because it's wide open, so you'll see a lot more civilian traffic and civilian activity on our station than most CF bases.
That means we really get involved in the community at a lot of different levels. The Cole Bridge is a good example. It was built by the Field Engineer Squadron. And when the city of St. John's initiated the Clean and Beautiful program, we got behind that too.
I guess one of the important things is what they did was they came in right at the beginning. They came to the first meeting, and even having 2 people there from the base in their uniforms, you know, presenting themselves very well, it sort of gave it a little bit of credibility. That it was really great to have some people come out and have a few people come down and ask some questions, but it gave it a little bit of push in terms of, well, this must be fairly worthwhile. You know, we've got the armed forces behind us, and we're using pictures that we have before and after pictures of the work they've done. We're using them on a poster that we have in our display when we're going around promoting Clean and Beautiful.
And we also get behind local charities with dollars and personnel. The United Way is a big one for us, and so is the Janeway Children's Hospital. That relationship started back in 1984 with a bed race. Today, it's the 24-hour Gander St. John's relay.
It's just been a tremendous working relationship with all the guys at the forces, and we've in that length of time, the forces have raised something like $55,000 to $60,000 for us, and which has enabled us to purchase new equipment for the hospital and to help the children and to help with new programs that we probably wouldn't been able to reach out to the community if it weren't for people like the Canadian Armed Forces.
Our Family Resource Center also plays an important role in assisting military families connect with the civilian community. While the center's primary responsibility is the needs of military families, many of its volunteers serve the larger community.
Even our board of directors here are made up of volunteers who are mostly military spouses. And I find that the individuals that get involved with those sorts of things aren't just giving to their own military community. They're giving to agencies outside. A lot of our board members are sitting on other different boards and volunteering with other different organizations. So it's not just giving to their own community. They certainly do give to St. John's at large.
Because of the close relationship between the station and the city of St. John's, military families find it relatively easy to settle in and to meet people. It's that kind of a city.
You know, the civilian population, they don't know anything about the military life, and to them, once you start talking to them, they find that it's really interesting. That they don't understand how we can move so much, and it must be very stressful, and it is, but it's the way it is, you know, and we just learn to accept it.
Here at Canadian Forces Station St. John's, our view of the future is brighter than ever. We have an important military role to play, and we are dedicated to doing that successfully. We also see ourselves as an integral part of the city, and that too is a role that we carry out with pride.